The plane jolted slightly as it climbed into the clouds, and a piercing, desperate wail tore through the quiet hum of first class. Alexander Pierce's hand tightened around the armrest as he looked down at Isla, his 6-month-old daughter, whose tiny face was red and wrinkled with relentless crying. He had tried everything: the lullaby app on his tablet, the bottle he meticulously prepared, even pacing the aisle. But nothing worked. Nothing. Passengers glanced up, some frowning, others exchanging whispered glances. One woman muttered, "You'd think he could hire someone to handle this." Alexander's jaw tightened, a flash of embarrassment heating his face. He was a billionaire, one of the most powerful men in tech, yet here he was, powerless before his own child. Every ounce of status, every influence, every resource he had brought nothing to bear. The infant's cries filled the cabin like a storm, relentless and accusing. From the back, in the economy section, a boy leaned forward from his cramped seat, eyes sharp behind thick glasses. Jaden Brooks, 16, had been studying a set of challenging equations on his tablet, prepping for the International Youth Mathematics Olympiad in London. He had no wealth, no luxury, just determination and a mind that refused to quit. And yet, he couldn't ignore the sound that traveled forward, tearing through the plush silence of first class, demanding attention. Jaden watched for a moment, silent, assessing, then leaned toward the aisle. His heartbeat quickened, not with fear, but with resolve. He had faced crying before, many nights spent soothing his baby sister through hours of inconsolable wails. He knew patterns, rhythms, how pressure and motion could calm a tempest of tears. The boy gathered courage, aware of the disparity, a billionaire in distress, and he, just a kid from the south side of Chicago. But courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was action in spite of it. He approached the flight attendant quietly. "Excuse me," he said, voice steady. "I think I can help your baby." The attendant hesitated, scanning the luxurious cabin ahead. "Sir, that's Mr. Pierce," she whispered. "You really shouldn't." "I just want to try," Jaden said firmly, the hint of a polite smile on his lips. "If it doesn't work, no harm done." By now, Alexander had stopped pacing and was staring at his daughter, a mixture of desperation and disbelief etched across his face. He noticed the boy approaching, small but purposeful. Pride bristled in him. A billionaire CEO being assisted by a teenager? Ridiculous. And yet the intensity of Isla's crying had drained every ounce of his control. He sighed and nodded, a silent surrender. "Go ahead," he muttered, voice tight, almost bitter. Jaden knelt beside the infant, careful not to startle her. He murmured softly, "Hey there, Isla. It's okay. We'll find the rhythm." He rocked her gently, matching a pattern he had, memorized from long nights of comforting his sister. He hummed a low tune, light but persistent, and applied gentle, precise pressure along her back, just where he had learned would soothe a colicky baby. Seconds stretched into minutes, and then, miraculously, Isla's cries began to soften, her little fists unclenched, tears slowing. Alexander blinked, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The entire first-class cabin seemed to hold its breath. The whispers ceased. The world had narrowed down to the boy, the baby, and the miracle that had unfolded in silence. "She's quiet," Alexander breathed, awe creeping into his voice. How did you do that?" Jaden looked up, shy but confident. I just knew. My sister, she used to cry like that. You figure it out, find the pattern and hope it works." Alexander studied the boy, really studied him for the first time. No hesitation, no pretense, just competence. There was brilliance there, yes, but also compassion, patience and courage. And suddenly, his own embarrassment melted into admiration. The rest of the world, the whispers, the stares, the judgment, disappeared. Jaden straightened, adjusting his glasses, and glanced at Alexander. "I'm Jaden. I'm actually headed to London for a math competition. I don't usually meet billionaires." His smile was modest, but there was a spark in his eyes. Alexander's lips twitched, a faint smirk breaking through his exhaustion. "Alexander," he said simply. "And, thank you. Seriously." Jaden nodded, glancing at the baby who now rested calmly in his arms. "Sometimes, you just need someone to listen, even if they're tiny." Alexander felt a lump in his throat, unaccustomed to admitting such feelings. I'll remember that." The plane hummed along, clouds drifting past the windows. But for a moment, there was a quiet in the first-class cabin unlike any other. A billionaire CEO had met a boy from the South Side, and in the span of a few minutes, lives had shifted. If you're already drawn in by this story, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment about what you'd do in Alexander's place, and subscribe for more incredible storytelling like this. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this chance encounter changes everything. The first minutes of the flight had felt like chaos, but a pattern had emerged, a rhythm. Alexander glanced down at Isla, her eyes fluttering as if she recognized safety, and then at Jaden, who met his gaze with quiet humility. In that small, impossible moment, a bridge had formed between two worlds, one of wealth, one of struggle, one of unspoken potential meeting its opportunity. The wheels of the plane hit the tarmac with a low rumble, but Alexander's mind wasn't on landing. He was still staring at Jaden, this boy who had done the unthinkable, quieted Isla when every professional and every gadget had failed. The passengers around them murmured quietly, some still exchanging looks of disbelief. Alexander felt a mix of pride and something unfamiliar, humility. He adjusted his tie, trying to regain composure, but it was useless. "Come on," he muttered, half to himself, half to Jaden. "We should get off the plane." Jaden followed quietly, keeping pace, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Sir, Alexander, do you think she'll keep sleeping?" His voice carried a mixture of hope and nerves. "She will," Alexander replied, though he wasn't certain. For the first time, he realized that control was an illusion. Wealth, status, power. They didn't matter in the face of a child's needs. Outside, the London air was crisp, and the taxiways gleamed under the late afternoon sun. Alexander's car waited, a sleek black sedan, but he hesitated. He wanted to talk more, learn more, and understand the boy who had amazed him so thoroughly. Do you want a ride?" he asked awkwardly. Jaden blinked, surprised. I think I'll walk to the hostel. I need to check in before the competition." Alexander nodded. "Of course. But here's my card." He handed over a sleek black business card embossed with his company logo. "If you ever need help, anything at all, call me. I mean it." Jaden held it carefully, almost reverently. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it." He tucked the card into his notebook. Neither of them spoke again until Jaden disappeared into the crowd. That night, Alexander sat in his hotel room, the quiet hum of London filtering through the open window. Isla stirred in her bassinet, small cries escaping her lips. Alexander's heart sank. He had done everything he could, or thought he had, and yet here she was, unsettled again. He reached for his phone and hesitated, thumb hovering over the number, and then he did it. He dialed Jaden. "Hello?" came the voice, tired but calm. "Jaden, it's Alexander. I need your help." There was a pause. Then, "Of course, sir. I can come over." Less than 30 minutes later, Jaden arrived, and Alexander watched him in amazement. He was methodical, patient, and confident, not the arrogance of privilege, but the quiet certainty of experience. The boy crouched next to Isla, murmuring softly, and the baby's cries faded. Alexander felt a lump rise in his throat, an emotion he wasn't used to admitting. Gratitude, raw and complete. "You really have a gift," Alexander said quietly. I've never seen anyone do what you just did." Jaden shook his head. "It's not magic. It's just paying attention, listening, patterns, and patience." Alexander leaned back in the chair, studying the boy. There was brilliance here, yes, but more than that. Humility, courage, empathy. "Tell me," he said. "Tell me your story." Jaden hesitated, then spoke, his words measured but earnest. He spoke of Eastwood, Chicago, of nights spent helping his younger sister with colic while his father worked late shifts. He spoke of the hours he spent studying math from second-hand books, of bake sales and donations that funded his trip to London. He spoke of determination forged in struggle and talent honed by necessity. Alexander listened, and for the first time in years, he didn't think of deals, stocks, or boardrooms. He thought of potential, pure, unpolished, and extraordinary. He realized that talent didn't always come from privilege, that genius could emerge from the most unlikely places, and he understood, deeply, that he was witnessing something rare, a mind capable of brilliance, guided by character and empathy. "You're remarkable," Alexander said, voice barely a whisper. "I've met plenty of geniuses, but few like you." Jaden smiled faintly. I'm just trying to do my best." Alexander leaned forward, a spark of decisiveness in his eyes. "You're going to London, and you're going to win that competition. And when you do, I want to help you. Mentorship, opportunities, whatever you need. You deserve it." Jaden's eyes widened, disbelief mixing with gratitude. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Alexander replied firmly. "Just promise me one thing. Keep being brave. Keep being brilliant. And never let anyone tell you what you can't do." The moment hung in the room like a delicate thread, connecting two worlds that had collided over a crying baby on a plane. Alexander realized that he had already learned more from this boy than he had in decades of business meetings. And Jaden understood, in ways words couldn't capture, that this encounter could change the course of his life. Later that evening, as Jaden prepared for bed in the modest hostel, he clutched Alexander's card. It wasn't just paper, it was a lifeline, a symbol of recognition, trust, and opportunity. He whispered a quiet promise to himself. "I won't let this chance slip away." And somewhere in London, a billionaire CEO reflected on the night, thinking about potential, about courage, and about the unexpected teachers who appear when you least expect them. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment sharing who you'd trust with a crying baby, and subscribe for more incredible stories of courage, genius, and life-changing encounters. The night passed, and dawn broke with a sense of possibility. Alexander watched Isla sleep peacefully, Jaden's words echoing in his mind. Two lives had intersected, and neither would ever be the same. The stage was set for the International Youth Mathematics Olympiad, and for a partnership that would defy expectation, bridge worlds, and ultimately transform both of their lives. London was alive with energy as Jaden stepped out of the taxi, the crisp morning air filling his lungs. The streets buzzed with tourists, taxis, honking, and the distant hum of buses. But he barely noticed. His focus was on the International Youth Mathematics Olympiad, the reason he had traveled halfway across the world, and the reason he had left the comfort of familiarity behind. Yet, at the back of his mind, the image of Isla's small face and Alexander's surprised eyes lingered, reminding him that courage and trust could appear in the most unexpected moments. He arrived at the venue, a grand building, glass and steel gleaming in the sunlight. Teens from all corners of the globe milled about, wearing uniforms or branded shirts from elite schools. Jaden felt the familiar tug of doubt, but he swallowed it down. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let intimidation win. He adjusted his glasses, straightened his notebook, and stepped forward. Inside, the competition hall was a cathedral of intellect. Rows of desks stretched endlessly, each student armed with pencils, erasers, and calculators. The air was thick with quiet concentration, the occasional murmur of strategy or calculation breaking the tension. Jaden's heartbeat echoed in his ears. He was aware of every eye on him, a boy from the south side of Chicago, standing shoulder to shoulder with the world's brightest young minds. Alexander watched from the observation gallery, holding Isla in his arms. He felt a surge of pride mixed with anxiety. This boy, this child he barely knew, was about to face a challenge far greater than calming a crying infant. Yet Alexander's instincts told him something he couldn't ignore. Jaden had brilliance, focus, and resilience in spades. The first problem set was handed out, and the room fell silent. Jaden's eyes scanned the pages, fingers flexing as he read. He felt the familiar rhythm of thought take over, the same rhythm that had soothed Isla, the same rhythm that had guided him through late nights of study. One problem after another, he attacked with methodical precision, his mind a blend of logic, intuition, and relentless determination. Hours passed like minutes. The crowd barely stirred as pens scratched and calculators clicked. Jaden occasionally glanced at the clock, then at the faces of other competitors, noticing the confidence, or arrogance, in some, the nervous tension in others. He reminded himself, talent alone wasn't enough. It was composure, creativity, and courage that would carry him through. Alexander leaned forward in his seat, speaking softly to Isla. "Look at him, Luna. Look at what courage looks like." The baby gurgled in response, as if acknowledging the moment. Alexander's pride swelled, mingled with a strange emotion he hadn't felt in years. Hope, pure and unfiltered. The judges collected the answer sheets, and the tension was unbearable. The finalists would be announced in moments. Jaden sat, head down, trying to steady his breathing. Each tick of the clock felt like an eternity. And then, the announcement. The winner of the International Youth Mathematics Olympiad is Jaden Brooks, representing the United States. The room erupted in applause. Jaden felt his stomach tighten, disbelief and joy battling for dominance. He had done it. Against every expectation, every doubt, he had prevailed. He looked up, eyes searching for Alexander. The man was on his feet, clapping with a wide, proud smile. Isla in his arms, her tiny hands reaching out in celebration. After the ceremony, Alexander descended the stairs with Isla, approaching Jaden backstage. The boy's hands were trembling slightly, his mind still racing from the adrenaline. Alexander knelt to Jaden's level, holding Isla closer. "You did it. You actually did it," he said, voice thick with emotion. Jaden laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief. I couldn't have done it without everything that got me here. The nights, the study, the courage to try when no one believed in me." Alexander's gaze softened. "You have more than courage. You have wisdom, empathy, brilliance. And I want to help you continue to grow. I want to offer you a scholarship through my foundation, mentorship in my company, and a place to be around Isla if you want." Jaden's eyes filled with tears, not from exhaustion, but from a swelling sense of gratitude and recognition. Sir, I don't know what to say. You believe in me." "I do," Alexander said firmly. "And I believe this is only the beginning." That night, back in his hotel room, Jaden clutched Alexander's card and thought of everything that had led him here. The nights spent soothing his sister, the support of his small community, the relentless hours of self-study, and the miraculous moment on that plane when he had stepped forward. He whispered a vow to himself. "I won't waste this chance. I'll make every moment count." Alexander watched Isla sleep peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling, and felt a profound realization settle over him. In this boy, he saw not just potential, but the kind of person the world needed: brave, compassionate, and brilliant. Alexander realized that mentorship wasn't just about teaching, it was about recognizing and nurturing what was already extraordinary. If this story is moving you, take a moment right now to subscribe. Leave a comment sharing how you'd react if a child needed your help, and hit that like button. Stories like this remind us that courage and kindness can change everything. The sun sat over London, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. In that light, two lives, one of privilege, one of perseverance, had intersected. The plane ride, the crying baby, the quiet determination of a boy who refused to back down, all of it had led to this moment. And while the world outside continued, the bond between Jaden, Alexander, and Isla had been forever transformed. The morning after the competition, London felt alive with possibility. Jaden walked alongside Alexander through the hotel lobby, Isla in a stroller, her tiny hands reaching out curiously. The city buzzed with tourists and locals, but to them, it was quiet. A world reduced to just 3 people bound by an extraordinary moment. Alexander glanced at Jaden, admiration and warmth in his eyes. "You know," he said, "I've met a lot of talented people in my life, some of them world-class. But there's something different about you. Not just your mind, your heart." Jaden blushed, unused to such praise, yet he held his head high. "I've had help along the way," he admitted. "From my dad, my community, and well, luck, I guess." Alexander shook his head. "No, this isn't luck. It's courage. You stepped forward when no one else would. You solved a problem when everyone thought it couldn't be solved. That's talent, but also character. And character is rare." They paused outside the hotel as a street musician played softly in the background. Alexander crouched to Jaden's level, handing him an envelope. "Inside is your scholarship. Full support through the Pierce Foundation for Youth Innovation, mentorship opportunities, and access to any resources you need. And I'd like you to continue helping Isla when you can. Not as a job, but as a chance to be around someone who will need you and trust you." Jaden's hands shook as he accepted the envelope. I don't know what to say." "Then say this," Alexander said, eyes glistening. "Promise me you'll keep being brave. Keep using that mind and heart of yours to change the world. That's all I need." "I promise," Jaden whispered. He glanced down at Isla, who had curled against the stroller, dozing in the morning sun. "I promise." Over the following weeks, Jaden's life transformed. He immersed himself in the mentorship Alexander offered, attending workshops, gaining access to advanced resources, and learning lessons that textbooks could never teach. Each day, he returned to Isla, her giggles and coos becoming a grounding rhythm, reminding him of where he had come from and why he had fought so hard. Alexander watched quietly, observing not just the boy's growth, but his own transformation. Parenthood, he realized, wasn't measured in control or wealth, but in patience, trust, and shared moments of vulnerability. He had believed that experience alone defined him, that his resources could solve every problem. But Jaden had taught him otherwise, that sometimes It was courage, empathy, and willingness to step forward that created the real change. One evening, as they returned from a mentoring session, Alexander asked softly, "Do you remember the plane ride?" Jaden laughed, the memory vivid. "How could I forget? Your baby screamed like the world was ending, and I just tried to help." "You saved more than just Isla that day," Alexander said, voice steady but emotional. "You reminded me why human connection matters. You reminded me why I started this in the first place." Jaden's smile faltered, humbled. I never thought I could make a difference." "You already have," Alexander said firmly. "And this is only the beginning." Months later, Jaden stepped onto the campus of MIT, scholarship in hand. He looked around, absorbing the sprawling campus, the students bustling with energy, and for a moment, the world seemed infinite. But he remembered the plane, the crying baby, the flight attendant's hesitant glance, and Alexander's quiet trust. Every obstacle, every night spent studying in the dim glow of a single lamp, every small act of courage had led here. Back in Chicago, his community celebrated him. The same neighbors who had baked, donated, and believed in him were there, smiles wide, pride shining in their eyes. Jaden realized then that achievement wasn't just individual, it was collective. Every hand that helped him along the way, every ounce of faith invested, had shaped him. Alexander returned to his office in Silicon Valley, a quiet smile on his lips. He looked at a framed photo of Isla and Jaden, taken during their first visit after the Olympiad. He thought about the lessons he had learned, humility, trust, and the recognition that talent often appears in unexpected forms. And he knew, deep in his heart, that mentoring Jaden had changed him just as much as it had changed the boy. The plane rides, the competitions, the sleepless nights, they had all been part of something bigger. The unthinkable had happened. A crying baby on a transatlantic flight had forged a bond that would ripple through lives, careers, and hearts. If this story has touched you, smash that like button, leave a comment about the moment that changed your perspective, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, challenge, and move you. You never know. One small act of courage might change everything. As the sun set over the horizon, casting amber light through the airplane window on their return flight, Isla slept peacefully in Jaden's arms, tiny breaths rising and falling like the rhythm of a world at peace. Alexander watched, silent, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with wealth, power, or success. It was hope, possibility, transformation. In that quiet moment, two worlds had collided, lives had intertwined, and the ordinary had become extraordinary. A billionaire's perspective had shifted, a young boy's dreams had soared, and a small child had become the center of a story that would echo far beyond the skies they had flown. Sometimes, Alexander thought, the smallest acts of bravery, the willingness to step forward, to care, to trust, can calm storms, open doors, and create legacies. And in this case, it had. The plane glided through the clouds as the city lights of London twinkled below. For Alexander, Jaden, and Isla, the journey wasn't just about destinations or achievements. It was about courage, compassion, and the unshakable belief that even the unlikeliest people can change the course of each other's lives forever. And in that belief, the world felt a little brighter, a little more possible, and infinitely more human